Welcome to Late Night Science. Tonight, we will step gently into the deepest mystery of all. What existed before the universe began? Before time, before space, before the first spark of light, there was a silence that no instrument can measure. A silence so vast it feels less like sound withheld and more like meaning itself suspended. I'm so glad you're here with me, whether you are listening from a quiet room, a distant city, or somewhere beneath the stars. If you are new, I invite you to join this community of dreamers and seekers, to like, to subscribe, to share where you are listening from in the comments below. And to those who return again and again, thank you for being part of this unfolding journey. Together we drift not only through science, but through wonder. Now let us begin. Close your eyes, if you like, and imagine nothing. Not the emptiness of a darkened room, not the hollow pause between heartbeats, but something stranger. A nothing where no measure can exist, where the word before dissolves like mist in sunlight. Can you imagine such a place? Or does your mind, like mine, instinctively reach for a picture, a story, a shape to hold on to? We crave beginnings, for they give us grounding. But the universe asks us to stretch into the ungrounded, to consider the possibility that before beginnings there was only silence. Science can guide us to the very edge of time, but not a step further. Our equations sing of moments after the Big Bang, fractions of a second in which matter and energy spilled into being. But they fall silent when asked, what was before? Physics meets its own horizon, and beyond it lies not data, but mystery. This is the first great contrast you encounter, the measured clarity of science against the immeasurable silence of the unknown. Evidence against imagination, certainty against wonder. Yet even in silence, your mind yearns for sound. You may find yourself picturing a void, a black expanse. But even that is too much. Blackness is already a presence, already a color, already a thing. To imagine what came before time is to try to paint with brushes we do not yet own. Still, there is comfort in trying. Comfort in letting the mind stretch across the gap, knowing it will never quite touch the other side. So let us rest in that gap together. Imagine you are standing at the edge of a shoreline. Behind you lies the familiar land of science. The known, the mapped, the measurable. Before you stretches a sea without end, calm and still, without waves, without horizon. That sea is not made of water. It is made of silence. A silence in which even the idea of beginnings and endings drifts away. For some, this silence feels like absence. For others, it feels like presence. A fullness too vast to name. Ancient traditions spoke of it as void, as chaos, as eternity. Modern cosmology calls it the boundary condition, the place where equations lose meaning. But listen closely, across cultures, across centuries, the silence before creation has always invited reflection. It has always whispered the same question. What does it mean for something to arise out of nothing? The philosopher might tell you that true nothingness is impossible, that the very concept contradicts itself. If nothing truly existed, it could not even be conceived. The physicist might add that even empty space seethes with quantum possibility. The mystic may say that what we call nothing is in fact the womb of everything. Who is right? Perhaps all, perhaps none. Here, opposites fold into one another. Emptiness and fullness, silence and sound, absence and presence. And yet, you live in a world of beginnings. You were born. You learn to count days and hours. You watch the sun rise and set, and from those rhythms you built your understanding of time. Beginnings comfort you because they mark the start of story. Without them, the mind feels unmoored, like a ship set adrift without anchor. But tonight, I ask you to rest in the unmoored, to allow yourself to feel the disquiet and the beauty of imagining a reality without a beginning. Consider how the universe itself may be teaching you this lesson. When we look deep into the cosmic microwave background, the faint afterglow of the Big Bang, We see the earliest light that space-time allows. It is not the first instant, but the first memory. Beyond that, the universe forgets, not because there is nothing there, but because memory cannot reach. The silence before creation is not only an idea, it is etched into the very limits of observation. And yet, that silence does not feel empty. It feels like a pause in a song, the kind of pause that makes the next note more powerful. Imagine the symphony of the cosmos. The violins swell, the drums thunder, the brass erupts, then a pause. No sound, no vibration, just stillness. The pause itself becomes music, not because of what it holds, but because of what it prepares. Could the silence before creation be such a pause, a cosmic breath before the first note was struck? Here is the paradox. Silence is nothing, and silence is everything. It is the absence of sound, but it also shapes sound. Without silence, music cannot exist. Without void, form cannot be noticed. Without stillness, movement cannot be felt. The silence before creation may be the greatest teacher of all, reminding you that what is absent is just as necessary as what is present. As you rest in this thought, you might notice how the silence resonates within your own life. There are pauses between your breaths, gaps between your thoughts, moments between your heartbeats. Those silences do not frighten you, for they give rhythm to your living. Perhaps the universe too carries such silences. Perhaps the silence before creation is not an error, not an absence to be filled, but part of a larger rhythm that spans eternity. And if silence is rhythm, then time itself becomes suspect. The silence before creation asks not only what came before, but whether before is even a real question. Perhaps there was no before. Perhaps there was only timelessness, a state beyond sequence, beyond cause and effect. In that state, beginnings are illusions, as are endings. There is only unfolding, endless and eternal. As you drift with me in this thought, feel how the silence stretches. It does not end. It does not demand answers. It only invites reflection. Science may one day peer deeper, but for now you are left with awe. Awe at the mystery, awe at the limits, awe at the thought that what lies before creation may not be nothing, nor something, but a reality for which we have no language. And so you float in this silence between what is known and what is unknowable. You let the question linger, unhurried like a star hanging in the night sky. You do not need to solve it tonight. You only need to rest with it, to feel its presence. But perhaps there is a way to touch it more closely, to approach the silence not through what came before, but through what we live inside every day. For what is time truly? Is it a river that carries us, or a mask we wear upon eternity? What is the nature of this current that seems so obvious, yet dissolves under closer gaze? Let us turn now softly into the mystery of time itself. What is time? You feel it every moment like a gentle tide moving you forward. The sun rises, the sun sets. Your body ages, your thoughts flow one into the next. Your heart ticks in rhythm with the clock on the wall. But if you stop and ask, what is this thing I call time? The answer begins to dissolve. Is it real, like the ground beneath your feet? Or is it only a trick of perception, a story your mind tells to make sense of change? Time, it seems, is both everywhere and nowhere, as intimate as your breath and as slippery as mist. To most of us, time feels simple. It flows forward, never backward. You cannot return to yesterday, no matter how much you long for it. A broken cup cannot unbreak, a life cannot unlive. This one-way direction, this arrow of time, defines your experience of existence. But physics complicates the picture. In Einstein's theory of relativity, time does not flow like a river separate from space. It weaves together with space itself, forming a fabric that bends, stretches, and curves. Time is not absolute. It is flexible relative to speed and gravity. A second on Earth is not the same as a second near a black hole. Imagine two twins. One stays on Earth while the other travels through space at near the speed of light. When the traveling twin returns, less time has passed for them than for the one who remained. They have aged more slowly. This is not science fiction. It is a truth confirmed by experiment. Astronauts flying high above Earth's surface do indeed experience time slightly differently than you do on the ground. The difference is tiny but real. What does this mean? It means that the minutes and hours you live by are not universal. They are local, bound to where you are and how you move. The flow of time, so steady on your wristwatch, is not steady at all in the vastness of the cosmos. For the universe, there is no single ticking clock. There are countless clocks, each keeping its own rhythm, and yet, to you, time feels undeniable. You wake, you work, you sleep. The seasons pass. Your memories gather behind you like footprints in sand, while the future stretches before you like an unseen path. This is the human invention of time, the carving of infinity into minutes and days, into calendars and histories. Without such divisions, life would feel impossible to manage. You would not know when to plant crops, when to meet a friend, when to mark a birthday. Time is your scaffold of order. But is it a feature of reality or only of mind? Here lies the contrast. Science tells you time is relative, malleable, even emergent. Yet your experience insists time is constant, solid, inescapable. Both cannot be wholly true, and perhaps that is the mystery. Perhaps time is not what you think it is at all. Some physicists go further, suggesting that time itself may not exist as a fundamental thing. It may be an illusion born from change, a way for consciousness to string together events. Imagine frames of a film reel. Each frame is still, unmoving. Yet when played in sequence, you perceive motion. Perhaps the universe is like this, static instants, stitched together by your awareness into the illusion of flow. If so, then time is not a current carrying you forward, but a lens shaping how you see. But what then of the arrow? Why does the past feel fixed while the future feels open? The answer lies in entropy, the measure of disorder. In the universe, order tends to break down. A hot cup of tea cools. A shattered glass does not reassemble. This increase of disorder gives time its arrow. The forward direction you feel is, in part, the unfolding of entropy. Without it, time would have no direction at all. Pause here and feel the wonder. The rhythm of your life, the rise and fall of your days, may be tied to the spreading of disorder across the cosmos. Every laugh, every tear, every thought floats upon this invisible tide of entropy. Without it, past and future would blur into a single stillness, and yet entropy is not the whole story. Time is not only physical, it is also psychological. Think of how it speeds when you are joyful, how it drags when you are waiting. Think of how memories bend your sense of the past, or how anticipation warps your vision of the future. The physics of time and the psychology of time do not always align. What the equations say and what your mind feels are not the same. This too is contrast. Time as measured by atomic clocks versus time as measured by your beating heart. The precision of science against the softness of human perception. Both are true in their own domains. Both are illusions in their own ways. Now imagine stepping outside of time entirely. Imagine watching the universe, as Einstein once suggested, as a four-dimensional block where past, present, and future all coexist, like pages in a book. You flip through them, but the story is already written. In this view, the flow you feel is not a river at all, but the turning of your own awareness across the pages. Does this comfort you or unsettle you? To know that every moment, past and future, may already exist, waiting? Here you sense again the rhythm of opposites, freedom versus determinism, flow versus stillness, illusion versus reality. Which is true? Perhaps both, perhaps neither. Time may be the grandest paradox of all. Real enough to govern your life, unreal enough to vanish under deeper scrutiny. So tonight, as you lie listening, think of time not only as a ticking clock, but as a veil. A veil that covers something deeper, something beyond before and after. The silence you explored in the last chapter may not be behind you after all. It may be hidden beneath the veil of time itself, and this veil is fragile. Peel it back, even slightly, and you glimpse the raw beginnings of the cosmos. For the mystery of time leads naturally to the mystery of origins. If time itself is not fundamental, then what can it mean to speak of a first moment, a beginning, a Big Bang? The question now sharpens. If we can peer back into the first second of creation, what do we find? What fossils, what echoes, what whispers does the universe carry from its birth? Let us drift into that first second, into the faint light still traveling across billions of years, into the echoes that remain when everything else has passed away. You have felt the flow of time, you have glimpsed its illusion, and now the question deepens. If time itself bends and flickers, how close can we come to its beginning? To the instant when the universe itself unfolded from silence into song? Physicists tell us that they can reach astonishingly close to the very first second after the Big Bang. Not before, not to the source, but to the faint echoes that linger, like the fading resonance of a bell long struck. Think of the night sky. To your eyes it is dark, studded with stars, but to the right instruments it glows faintly with a light older than galaxies, older than stars themselves. This is the cosmic microwave background, the afterglow of creation, stretched thin across space by billions of years of expansion. It is not bright, not visible, but it surrounds you always, a quiet ocean of photons whispering the story of that first second. Imagine standing in a vast cathedral after a great chorus has sung. The voices are gone, the singers have departed, but the echoes still reverberate in the rafters, soft and ghostly. That is what the cosmic microwave background is, the cathedral's echo of the universe's birth cry. It is a fossil light, imprinted when the cosmos was only a few 100,000 years old, young enough to still remember the fire from which it came, and yet even this ancient light does not show you the moment of the Big Bang itself. It is not the first note, but the resonance that followed. Like an archaeologist digging, you can only reach the layers preserved, never the moment the first stone was set. The Big Bang hides itself behind a horizon of opacity. Before the universe cooled enough for light to move freely, there is no photograph, no image, only speculation. Still, within the whispers of the background radiation, patterns emerge. Tiny fluctuations, minute ripples in temperature, mapped with exquisite precision by satellites. These ripples are the fingerprints of quantum fields stretched across space. They are the seeds from which galaxies grew, the faint script from which the cosmos read its own future. From almost nothing, structure blossomed, clusters of stars, webs of galaxies, the architecture of all that you now see. Pause here and reflect. The grandeur of everything around you, earth, oceans, trees, your own breathing body, traces back to fluctuations less than 1/1,000,000th of a degree in that ancient light. Random quantum jitters, expanded and magnified, became the scaffolding of the universe. Out of almost imperceptible whispers came the vastness of creation, and yet the more closely you listen to these echoes, the more you feel their limits. They tell you much but not all. They show the aftermath but never the act. The first second after the Big Bang remains partly veiled. Within that second, matter and energy surged, particles collided, space itself ballooned in inflation, and the laws you now know settled into place. But what set this in motion? What came before? The echoes fall silent. Here lies the border between knowledge and mystery. On one side you have the measured data of radiation maps, the precise curves of particle physics, the elegant theories of inflation. On the other side lies the unmeasured, the unspoken, the unknowable. Like light separating from shadow, you can see the edge, but never what lies beyond. Consider the idea of quantum foam. At unimaginably small scales, the universe is not smooth and steady, but froths and shivers with fluctuations. Space-time itself, instead of being a calm fabric, becomes turbulent, bubbling with possibilities. In that foam, Particles flicker into and out of existence like sparks in a dark night. Some physicists imagine that the universe itself arose from such a fluctuation, a bubble of energy expanding into what you now call reality. Is this truth or speculation? The echoes cannot tell. Think also of the particle fields, invisible yet everywhere, filling space even now. The Higgs field, for instance, endows particles with mass, shaping the material world. These fields did not appear after the universe began. They were there, humming from the first second onward, guiding the unfolding like hidden hands. To speak of the echoes of the first second is also to speak of these silent fields, without which nothing solid could ever exist. But perhaps the most haunting truth is this: we can approach the first second, but never touch the instant before it. Our science falters at the threshold, as though the universe has drawn a curtain across its own birth. You can listen to the echoes, but the voice that produced them remains beyond reach. The first instant is forever absent, a mystery wrapped in silence. This absence does not diminish wonder, it deepens it. For it reminds you that science is not only a catalogue of answers, but also a lantern that throws shadows. The shadows are as vital as the light, for they remind you of how much remains unseen. And so, you live in a universe built of echoes and fossils. Every star is an echo of the fusion that began in the first minutes. Every atom in your body is a fossil of that primordial fire. Even your thoughts tonight are possible only because of the fluctuations frozen in the cosmic microwave background. You are not separate from the first second. You are its continuation. This is the comfort and the paradox. You are made of echoes, yet you can never hear the original voice. You live within the light, yet the source of that light is hidden. You carry the past in your very being, yet the ultimate past withdraws always just beyond. As you let this awareness settle, imagine again the night sky. Imagine the faint microwave glow washing gently across you, a light so ancient it remembers when galaxies were unborn. Feel how small the fluctuations are and yet how vast their consequences. In every direction this background surrounds you, connecting you to the beginning. It is the most democratic of lights. It shines equally on all. But the echoes also whisper of something stranger. The recognition that even nothing is never truly empty. That even when the first second ends, something deeper stirs beneath it. If the echoes are fossils, then what lies beneath the fossils? If the background is memory, then what underlies memory itself? Perhaps the answer lies in nothingness, but a nothingness that trembles, that seethes, that waits to become something. For to understand the silence before the echoes, you must ask what it means for nothing to exist at all. And so, as you drift deeper into the mystery, let us turn softly toward the paradox of nothingness, to ask whether emptiness is truly empty, or whether even void conceals a restless potential. What is nothing? The question seems simple, almost childlike. Close your eyes, empty your thoughts, imagine blankness. Perhaps you picture a dark void, a silent emptiness. But pause. Even that darkness is something. Even silence has a texture. The very act of imagining nothing fills it with the residue of something. True nothingness, Archon, if it exists at all, that escapes you. The word deceives. To say nothing is already to name it, to give it form, to pull it into being. And yet philosophy and physics return to it again and again, compelled by its paradox. For if the universe exists, then what if anything preceded it? If all matter and energy arose, what was there before? Nothing, or so you are tempted to say. But then physics whispers, not so fast. Quantum theory teaches that even the vacuum is restless. What you might think of as empty space is never truly barren. Instead, it trembles with possibility. Virtual particles flicker in and out of being, appearing for the briefest moments before vanishing again, like sparks in a night sky. The vacuum hums with fluctuations, an invisible froth of potential. Call this nothing is misleading. It is more like an ocean, calm on the surface, but beneath, alive with waves. Physicists call this the quantum vacuum. Far from an absence, it is a fertile field, a canvas of possibility from which reality may be painted. Energy quivers within it, subtle and fleeting. Out of these fluctuations, particles may be born. Entire universes, some suggest, could blossom from such fertile ground. Nothing, it seems, is not nothing at all, and yet you must pause, because this quantum nothing is not what philosophers mean by nothingness. For philosophers, true nothing would mean the absence not only of matter and energy, but of space, of time, of laws themselves. No dimensions, no stage, not even the potential for fluctuation. Not an ocean. Not even a pond. Not even silence, because silence presumes the possibility of sound. A desert without sand, a void without space, absence absolute. This deeper nothing haunts human thought. Can such a nothing exist? Or is it merely an impossible concept, a shadow of language? The ache of the question lies in its starkness. If true, nothing ever was, how could something ever have come to be? From emptiness nothing emerges. And yet, here you are, in a universe overflowing with galaxies. It is here that metaphors strain and falter. Physicists describe the quantum vacuum as an endless sea bubbling with virtual energy. Philosophers wrestle with whether even this sea is still something. Imagine then two mirrors facing each other in a room. Even if the room is empty, the mirrors are not silent. They tug upon the vacuum itself, altering the dance of fluctuations. A measurable force arises, the Casimir effect, proof that emptiness is never empty. But what about true nothing? The barren desert without even possibility? Some say it cannot be. Others say it once was, and from it the universe erupted, though no mechanism can explain how. Perhaps the very question collapses under its own weight. For the moment you conceive of nothing, you are already thinking of something. The mind recoils from absence absolute, so you drift between two visions. On one side, the physicist's vacuum, an ocean alive with motion, seething with invisible activity. On the other, the philosopher's ache, the dream of a void so total it admits no ripple, no being, not even the possibility of thought. Between them lies mystery, and perhaps also necessity. For what if nothing is unstable? What if, by its very nature, nothingness cannot remain nothing? Some thinkers suggest that nothing inevitably births something, as if absence itself carries the seed of presence. Like a still pond that cannot help but ripple, nothingness may tremble into being. Pause with that image. A still pond smooth as glass. You gaze at it, and for a moment it is perfect, flawless, silent. But then, almost inevitably, a tremor disturbs it, a drop of rain, a breath of wind, the smallest of movements. So too, perhaps, with nothingness. Absolute silence, absolute stillness may be impossible. The void cannot help but quiver, and from that quiver comes being. And yet, such images are only approximations, metaphors reaching toward what cannot be grasped. No human has ever known nothing. You live always in the presence of something. Light, thought, sensation, space. Even when you imagine a void, you picture it within a frame of space and time. Nothingness itself eludes, forever receding beyond thought's horizon. Still, you cannot let it go. Because the question of nothing is also the question of beginning. Did the universe arise from the fertile vacuum of quantum fields trembling with possibility? Or did it spring from the abyss of true nothing, the absolute absence beyond comprehension? If so, how? If not, why does the idea haunt you still? Perhaps the truth is stranger still, that there never was a nothing. That being has always been, in some form or another. That the universe, or universes, cycle eternally, without need for a beginning. If so, the problem of nothing dissolves on, replaced not by emptiness, but by rhythm. Expansion, contraction, birth, death, and birth again. In this vision, nothing is an illusion, a word without referent. for there was never absence, only transformation. The cosmos is not a story with a blank first page, but a poem written in cycles, each verse giving way to the next. Nothing does not precede something. Instead, something gives way to itself, endlessly. And here you begin to sense the pull of another story. A story older than physics, whispered in myth and memory, and of eternal returns, of worlds born and worlds destroyed, only to rise again. You stand at the threshold where nothing gives way not to silence, but to cycles, to patterns, to a universe that may never truly begin and never truly end. If nothing is not nothing, then perhaps endings are not endings, but preludes. Perhaps each collapse is only the seed of renewal. Perhaps the silence of nothing is only the breath before the next cosmic song, and so let us turn now from the paradox of emptiness to the rhythm of eternity, to the cycles and eternal returns that may weave the deepest pattern of all. What if the universe has no beginning? What if the very notion of a first moment is itself an illusion, a human craving for origin stories? From childhood, you have been told that everything must start somewhere. A tale begins with once upon a time, a life begins with birth, a day begins with dawn. But the cosmos, vast and inscrutable, may not follow the rhythm of human storytelling. What if it moves instead to a deeper rhythm, one of endless cycles, of death and rebirth, of beginnings without first beginnings? The idea is ancient. In myth, in religion, in philosophy, whispers of eternal return echo across cultures. Hindu cosmology speaks of vast cycles, kalpas, in which universes are created, sustained, destroyed, and born again. The Stoics imagined a cosmos that burns itself to ash in fire, only to rise again, phoenix-like, in eternal repetition. Among the Maya, time was not a straight arrow, but a wheel, turning and turning without end. Even Nietzsche, standing on the precipice of modern thought, spoke of eternal recurrence, the haunting idea that everything you live, every joy and sorrow may one day repeat. Again and again, modern cosmology, though guided by mathematics and observation, sometimes circles back to these ancient patterns. The Big Bang, so often described as the beginning of all things, might not have been a beginning at all. Perhaps it was only the latest in a chain of expansions and contractions, each universe swelling outward, then folding back in upon itself. The Big Crunch, some scientists once envisioned, would follow the Big Bang, the universe collapsing into itself, only to explode outward again, birthing a new cosmos from the ashes of the old. Imagine it, galaxies racing apart, stars burning through their fuel, black holes swallowing light. And then slowly the expansion halts. Gravity takes hold. The great fabric of space begins to draw inward, folding in, tightening, gathering. All matter collapses into a single blazing point, and from that unbearable compression, a new Big Bang ignites. An eternal heartbeat of creation. Expansion, contraction. Birth, death. And birth again, but cycles need not be so simple. Some theories speak not of a single, uniform rhythm, but of a multiverse that births universes in bubbles, each one expanding, colliding, or fading into silence. Others imagine cosmic bounces where each collapse seeds not one, but countless new beginnings, each with its own laws, its own constants, its own possibilities, and yet these scientific visions echo the poetic myths of renewal. They whisper the same comfort, that nothing ends forever, that what collapses may be reborn, that endings may only be preludes. But pause here, for cycles are not only a scientific hypothesis or a mythic story. They are written into your very life, into the world around you. The day gives way to night, and night again to day. The seasons turn from bloom to decay, from decay to bloom. Your own breath is a cycle. Inhale, exhale, inhale again. Even the cells in your body die and are replaced, woven into new forms. Life itself is a song of cycles. So why should the universe not also move in such patterns? Yet there is a shadow to eternal return. For if everything repeats, if every joy and every sorrow comes again, is there comfort in that or despair? Nietzsche's question presses, if you were forced to live your life over in every detail endlessly, would you embrace it? Would you accept each moment, knowing it returns forever? The idea is at once terrifying and liberating. Cosmology, however, faces a practical challenge. Observations suggest our universe is not slowing its expansion but accelerating. The galaxies are not preparing to fall back inward. They are racing away faster and faster, driven by dark energy, that mysterious pressure pushing the cosmos outward. If this continues, the universe may never contract, may never crunch, may never bounce. Instead, it may stretch endlessly, stars burning out, galaxies drifting into darkness, until only silence remains. And so, science balances between visions. On one side, the dream of cycles, comforting, poetic, eternal. On the other, the bleak prospect of heat death, of an expansion without renewal. One is rhythm, the other is silence. One is rebirth, the other finality. And you, suspended between, listen to their contrast as if listening to two possible fates of the same story. Still, the allure of cycles lingers. For in cycles there is hope. In cycles there is meaning. Every collapse becomes not a tragedy but a preparation. Every death becomes a seed. The universe itself becomes a tree in winter, bare and silent, waiting for spring. The Big Bang becomes not a singular miracle but a recurring bloom, a rhythm written into reality itself. Perhaps you can imagine it as if closing your eyes to dream. A cosmos as a vast ocean tide, swelling and receding, swelling again. Each wave a universe cresting with stars and life, then breaking, dissolving, only to rise again. Each beginning carries echoes of the last, each end carries whispers of renewal. And perhaps it is not repetition, but variation, cycles that return but never the same. Just as seasons differ in their bloom, just as each breath feels different in the body, so too might each universe return with a new face. Perhaps the constant shift, the laws bend, the stories change. Perhaps there are echoes, but also novelties. Perhaps the eternal return is not a circle but a spiral, winding ever onward. Whether mythic or scientific, cycles comfort the human heart. For in them nothing is wasted. In them every collapse has purpose. In them nothing is final. And if the universe truly moves to such rhythms, then even silence is temporary, even endings are preludes, even nothing is not nothing. But the question deepens. If the universe is part of a cycle, is it alone? Are there other cycles, other universes, other beginnings beyond our own? What lies beyond the pattern we know? Could there be not just one eternal rhythm, but countless, woven into a tapestry without edge? And so the horizon widens. The story of cycles opens into something even vaster, more speculative, more wondrous. Beyond the cycle of our universe may lie the sea of other universes, infinite beginnings rising without end. If cycles comfort you with renewal, the multiverse astonishes you with possibility. Close your eyes and let the rhythm of cycles dissolve now into the ocean of infinity. For what comes next is the dream of many worlds, the sea of other beginnings. Imagine standing on a shore at night. Before you stretches a dark ocean, vast and unbroken, waves rolling into infinity. You know there are islands out there, perhaps whole continents, but the horizon hides them from view. You feel both small and alive with wonder. Now lift that image upward, outward, into the cosmos. Beyond our universe, beyond the stars and galaxies we can see, may lie a far greater ocean. Not of water, but of worlds, the multiverse. For centuries, humanity has assumed the universe was all that is, all that ever was. A single cosmos bound by its own beginning, expanding into its own destiny. But modern thought begins to whisper something larger. Perhaps our universe is but one bubble in a vast foam, one wave in a boundless sea. And if that is true, then beginnings multiply beyond count. What we call the universe may be only one chapter in an infinite library. The loneliness of a single universe is heavy. It suggests fragility, uniqueness, a story that must end. But the awe of many universes is staggering. It suggests abundance, variety, endless creation. Imagine universes where stars are brighter, universes where time runs differently, universes where the constants of physics are tilted ever so slightly. In some, life might flourish. In others, silence might reign. The multiverse turns possibility into landscape. Science approaches the idea cautiously. It is difficult to test, difficult to measure. And yet, in the equations of cosmology and quantum theory, the multiverse appears like a ghost at the edge of vision. Consider inflation theory. Our universe, it is thought, began with a sudden, violent expansion. Space stretching faster than light, smoothing, cooling, birthing galaxies. But inflation, some suggest, may not be a one-time event. It may be eternal, bubbling endlessly. Each bubble expands into its own universe, each universe carrying its own laws, its own birth, its own fate. Ours is only one bubble in the eternal froth. Others imagine a quantum multiverse born from the many worlds interpretation of quantum mechanics. Every choice, every possibility splits the fabric of reality. A particle spins left and right, a cat lives and dies, a star collapses and does not collapse. Every possibility is realized, each in its own branch. If this is so, then your life has already splintered countless times, and countless versions of you walk paths you will never know. Infinity becomes intimate, and still others imagine cosmic collisions. Universes might drift in higher dimensional space, colliding like vast, unseen membranes. Each collision a new Big Bang, each impact a spark of creation. The fire of beginnings spread across a greater canvas than any human mind can hold. But beyond the theories, the multiverse is also a metaphor. It invites you to stretch your imagination into infinity. It contrasts the solitude of one fragile cosmos with the abundance of countless others. It takes the ache of finality and dissolves it into endless beginnings. If there are infinite universes, then nothing is ever final. If there are infinite beginnings, then the question of before itself becomes slippery. For how can there be a first moment when beginnings bloom without end? Close your eyes and drift. Imagine an infinite library where every book exists, every story ever written, every story possible. Somewhere in that library is the story of this universe, this very moment, these very words. But on the shelves beside it are volumes where the story differs, where stars burn blue instead of gold, where gravity is weaker, where time folds in unexpected ways. The library has no edge. The shelves stretch forever. This is the multiverse. Infinite books, infinite stories, infinite beginnings. You read one, but others are always being written. And yet, if there are infinite books, infinite stories, does it even make sense to ask which was first? In a library without end, beginnings lose their meaning. They blur into one another like waves upon the sea. The contrast is profound. In one vision, the universe is alone, fragile, finite. In the other, the universe is abundant, endless, generous with beginnings. One vision breeds loneliness, the other awe. One narrows your gaze, the other expands it until it cannot be contained. And yet, the multiverse also unsettles. For if there are countless versions of reality, what becomes of meaning? If every choice is made, every path walked, every outcome realized, is anything truly unique? Are you irreplaceable or one of infinite echoes? Infinity comforts, but it also disorients. It gives you endless beginnings, but steals the solidity of one. Still, you cannot turn away from the wonder. For in contemplating the multiverse, you glimpse a truth larger than comprehension, that creation may not be rare, but woven into the very fabric of reality. That what we call the Big Bang may not be a singular miracle, but one of countless sparks. That existence itself may be abundant, generous, inexhaustible, and so you drift again to that image of the sea. Each wave rises, crests and falls, but the ocean is endless. Each bubble bursts, but more are born. You watch the tide roll in, wave after wave, and you understand. Perhaps the cosmos is like this. Each universe a wave, each beginning an echo, each moment a shimmer on the surface of infinity. Now ask yourself gently, if there are infinite beginnings, can there ever truly be a before? The word before implies a sequence, one thing following another, but infinity resists sequence. If universes blossom endlessly, then there is no first, no origin, no finality. Before dissolves into the sea as meaningless as asking what lies before the ocean itself. The multiverse teaches both humility and wonder. Humility because your universe is no longer the only stage, no longer the center. Wonder because infinity multiplies possibility until imagination itself trembles. And in this trembling, a deeper question emerges. If there are countless universes, what gave rise to the sea itself? What lies beneath the multiverse? What precedes even the ocean of beginnings? Do the waves rest upon something deeper, something timeless, something beyond time itself? Here thought falters. Here the mind reaches into mystery. For if time itself begins within each universe, then what lies before them all may not include time at all. Perhaps the seed of creation is not a moment, not a point, not even a wave. Perhaps it is something stranger, a timeless quantum seed, out of which time itself unfolds like music from silence. And so the story carries you onward from the ocean of many worlds to the seed of time itself. Beyond infinity lies a question more delicate still. What does it mean to exist outside time? What does it mean to speak of before the Big Bang? The question sounds simple, but hidden within it is a paradox. For before is a word that depends on time, and time itself may not have existed prior to that great unfolding. To ask what came before time may be like asking what lies north of the North Pole, a question that dissolves the moment it is spoken. And yet you cannot help but wonder. To imagine the universe without time is to imagine a story without sequence, a melody without rhythm, a life without heartbeat. Your mind struggles because you live in time's current. Every thought you have is bound to before and after. Your memories tell you what has happened. Your hopes whisper what may come. The present is always slipping away, dissolving into past, reaching into future. To exist outside of this current is alien, and yet physics dares to suggest it. Quantum cosmology proposes that the fabric of time itself may have been born in the Big Bang. Not just space, not just matter, but time, the very measure of before and after. If this is so, then asking what existed before time is like asking what existed before existence itself. It is not simply an absence of things within time, but an absence of time altogether. Pause and picture silence. Absolute silence before music begins. No rhythm, no melody, no vibration. Then at the first note, sound emerges and rhythm follows. Time may be like this. Emergent, rising from a seed, unfolding from silence into structure. The Big Bang may not have been an explosion in time, but the beginning of time itself. The first note of the universe's song. This is the heart of the idea, known as the quantum seed. That at the boundary, where our knowledge fades beyond the Planck time, that unimaginably tiny instant after the Big Bang, lies a region where the laws of physics blur. In that boundary, time is not a fixed stage but a fluid possibility. Some physicists describe it as a quantum foam, a restless uncertainty where neither time nor space exists in the form you know. Others describe it as a potentiality, a timeless seed from which the ordered flow of past, present, and future germinates. It is a humbling image. For you are used to thinking of time as absolute, the backdrop against which everything else plays. But here, time is not the stage. Time is the actor, the character, the emergent presence. It arises, it grows, it shapes the play. The Big Bang becomes not just a birth of matter, but a birth of sequence, of duration, of the very possibility of change. And so the contrast deepens. On one side, the human experience of time, constant, relentless, woven into memory and expectation. On the other, the scientific suggestion that time itself is contingent, fragile, emergent. You live as if time was solid. Physics whispers that it may be soft as mist. What, then, lies outside time? Not before in the way you understand it, but outside entirely. Here, words begin to fail. Outside presumes space, before presumes time. You are left with a place that is not a place, a moment that is not a moment. A realm that cannot be pointed to, cannot be remembered, cannot be measured. It is the space between being and non-being where categories dissolve, and yet you can sense its outlines through metaphor. Imagine a seed before it sprouts. Within it lies the potential of the tree, the branches, the leaves, the fruit, but none yet visible. Time, too, may lie dormant in the quantum seed, unexpressed, waiting to emerge. Or imagine a painting not yet begun. The canvas is blank, but the possibility of color, of shape, of beauty is present. So too with time, unpainted, yet latent. In some theories, this timeless seed is described mathematically. Equations suggest that near the origin, the distinction between time and space blurs. Time may curve, may fold, may vanish altogether. In some quantum models, time loops upon itself, eliminating the need for a beginning. In others, the laws that govern time emerge spontaneously, like ice forming from water as it cools. Time crystallizes, freezes out of the fluid of possibility. But mathematics, while powerful, cannot capture the felt strangeness. For to say there was no time is to speak a language you cannot fully inhabit. To exist without before and after is to exist outside everything you know. It is to hover in suspense, in a silence beyond silence. It is to ask whether existence can exist without duration. And here philosophy leans in. Can there be being without time? Can anything be if it does not unfold, does not persist, does not change? If so, then perhaps what existed before the Big Bang is not a something in any sense you recognize. Perhaps it is better called potentiality. Neither nothing nor something, neither absent nor present, but the possibility of both. Think again of music. A melody rises from silence, but the silence is not empty. It holds the possibility of sound waiting. Time, too, may have risen from silence. A silence pregnant with rhythm. The Big Bang, then, is not simply a physical explosion, but the transformation of potential into sequence, of silence into song, and what of you? To reflect on a timeless seed is to confront your own limits. Your mind, rooted in time, cannot step fully outside it. You cannot imagine timelessness without imagining it as endless time. You cannot conceive of the absence of before and after without smuggling in before and after. Yet the idea remains, shimmering like a horizon you cannot reach. Some thinkers suggest comfort here, for if time has a beginning, then so does duration, so does aging, so does loss. The flow you feel is not eternal but contingent. It arose and perhaps it can end. Others find unease. If time is fragile, what anchors you? If the seed of time can vanish, what does that mean for meaning itself? The contrast between comfort and unease echoes like two voices, each true, each incomplete. Perhaps it is best not to resolve the paradox, but to dwell within it, to allow yourself to hover, suspended between being and non-being, between silence and song. The quantum seed is not an answer, but an invitation, to rest in mystery, to let your thoughts drift beyond the horizon of what can be known, and so you float, imagining a realm outside time where before and after do not exist. You cannot see it clearly, but you sense its outline in metaphor, in silence, in the ache of wonder. Yet even as you hover, the universe whispers of memory. For everything that unfolds within time leaves traces, imprints, echoes. Our universe carries memory in its expansion, in its background radiation, in its entropy. But what lies beyond memory's horizon? If time itself had a beginning, is memory cut off at its root? If memory erases itself, can the past truly exist at all? With these questions, you move gently from the silence of the seed to the horizon of memory, where the universe begins to remember itself, and perhaps also forget. The universe remembers. Its memories are not like yours. No photographs, no journals, no fragile recollections whispered to a friend. Instead, the universe holds memory in its very structure. The galaxies drifting apart carry the memory of an initial expansion. The faint glow of cosmic microwave background radiation is a fossil imprint of a time when everything was hot and close. Even entropy in the slow drift toward disorder is memory, a record of what has unfolded, an arrow pointing from what was to what will be. But memory, whether human or cosmic, has a horizon. There are limits to what can be recalled. Look too far back and you find only silence, only erasure. The universe, vast as it is, forgets. Consider first the expansion itself. Astronomers look across billions of light years and see galaxies racing away, their light stretched thin. This stretching, this redshift, is memory encoded in starlight. Each photon you catch in a telescope has traveled through time, carrying a story. Yet there is a boundary. Beyond a certain distance, light cannot reach you. The expansion outruns it. The edge of the observable universe is not the edge of existence, but the edge of memory. Beyond it lies a region forever hidden, where no record can arrive. The cosmic microwave background is another kind of memory, the afterglow of the Big Bang. It is faint, uniform, nearly featureless, yet within its subtle ripples are the fingerprints of the infant cosmos. To measure them is to peer almost back to the beginning, and yet not beyond. For before the universe cooled enough to release this light, it was opaque, a plasma of particles scattering every photon. No image can pierce further. The light you see is the oldest light that can ever reach you. Beyond that, the universe forgets. Entropy, too, is a form of memory. Each increase in disorder marks a one-way path from past to future. A shattered glass remembers, in its fragments, the fact that it was once whole. The universe, in its gradual slide into heat death, carries the memory of all transformations. But entropy is also a forgetting. For as systems decay into uniformity, distinctions fade. The sharpness of events blurs into sameness. In the far future, when stars have burned out and matter has thinned into a cold mist, the universe may be nothing but amnesia, a smoothness in which no memory remains. Perhaps the most haunting symbol of forgetting is the black hole. These cosmic abysses swallow everything, matter, light, even information. To cross their event horizon is to be erased from the ledger of the visible universe. Stephen Hawking suggested that black holes radiate, slowly evaporating over unimaginable spans of time. But whether information is preserved in that process or lost forever remains one of physics' deepest mysteries. A black hole is memory's edge made flesh, a place where the universe's story may be crossed out. And so we return to the question of the beginning. If memory is written in radiation, in entropy, in light, what happens when we ask about before the Big Bang? The traces dissolve. No radiation survives from a time prior. No entropy measures it. No photon carries the story. The horizon of memory closes tightly at that point. It may not be that the memory is hidden. It may be that it does not exist at all. This is the chilling possibility that there is no record of what came before because there was no before to record. That the past you long for, a time before the first time, is not merely forgotten, but unwritten. The universe may be finite not just in what it reveals, but in what it holds. Its history may begin with the beginning and nowhere else. For human beings, forgetting is tinged with loss. You cling to memory because it anchors you. It tells you who you are, where you have been. To forget is to lose a part of yourself. Perhaps that is why the horizon of memory feels so haunting. To confront a universe that remembers only so much is to confront the possibility that ultimate origins are absent, that the record is incomplete, that the story begins without a prologue, and yet forgetting is not only loss, it is also freedom. If there is no record of before, then the universe is not bound by what preceded it. Its birth is pure creation, unburdened by history. Just as your own life can begin anew when memory releases its grip, so too the cosmos may be ever young, always beginning, always now. Philosophers and mystics have long wrestled with this duality, memory as anchor, forgetting as release. The Vedic poets spoke of cycles where creation arises and dissolves, each universe forgetting its prior incarnation. The Greeks imagined Lethe, the river of forgetting, through which souls passed before rebirth. In each story, memory's horizon is not the end, but the threshold to something beyond knowing. So perhaps it is not emptiness that lies beyond memory's reach, but another kind of truth, one not stored in photons or entropy, but in structure itself. If matter and light cannot remember, maybe mathematics can. Numbers, ratios, laws. These do not fade with entropy, do not vanish at an event horizon. They exist whether or not anything remembers them. And here the thought begins to shift. What if before memory there was mathematics? What if the true pre-existence of the universe is not written in light, but in law? Not in fossils, but in forms. The Pythagorean dream whispers, numbers are eternal. The Platonic realm suggests geometry precedes creation. Perhaps the horizon of memory is not the end after all, but the doorway into something more fundamental. And so, as you stand at memory's edge, gazing back into silence, a new vision arises that the universe may not be anchored in recollection, but in relation. That before memory was mathematics and before time was structure, a score waiting untouched for its first performance. Before the first atom spun, before the first photon streamed, before the first second ticked, there may have been something far less tangible yet far more eternal. Not particles, not waves, not matter, not energy, numbers, ratios, laws. A quiet architecture that needed no stage to exist, a score written before any instrument arrived to play it. This is the ancient dream, that reality is at its heart mathematical, that what you touch, what you see, what you breathe are only shadows of deeper structures, invisible yet undeniable. To imagine this is to step into a realm without beginning or end, where triangles, circles, and rhythms exist outside time, awaiting their chance to weave themselves into a world. The Pythagoreans, thousands of years ago, believed that number was the key to all things. For them, harmony in music, proportion in art, and order in the heavens were not accidents but echoes of an eternal mathematics. The Platonic tradition took this further, a realm of pure forms existing independent of the physical, timeless, and perfect. Our universe, in this vision, is a dim reflection of that realm, a shadow cast by geometry itself. At first, these were only philosophies, dreams of poets in an age before telescopes or equations. But as science grew, their whispers returned. Galileo declared that the universe is written in the language of mathematics. Newton saw in his laws of motion not just convenience, but the mind of God. Einstein bent space with equations that seemed less invented than discovered. Again and again, mathematics has revealed itself as the hidden script of reality, a language the cosmos speaks fluently, whether or not anyone listens. Yet the mystery deepens when you ask, does mathematics merely describe the universe, or does it exist before the universe? If no stars shone, would the number 3 still exist? If no minds counted, would geometry still hold its truths? Here the contrast sharpens. On one side, the scientific pragmatist insists mathematics is a tool, a human invention, nothing more. It is ink on paper, chalk on slate, neurons firing in clever patterns. Without minds, there is no mathematics, just chaos. But on the other side, the Platonist whispers, mathematics is discovered, not invented. The ratio of a circle's circumference to its diameter, p, does not depend on your imagination. It exists whether or not anyone speaks of circles. It was true before life and will remain true after stars die. Modern physics, almost reluctantly, leans toward the latter. The equations of quantum theory, of relativity, of cosmology, they describe a reality that seems to run on mathematics as much as on matter. Why does math work so unreasonably well? Why does a scribble on a chalkboard predict the orbit of a planet or the behavior of a particle? Eugene Wigner called it the unreasonable effectiveness of mathematics. It is effectiveness that feels more like inevitability, as though the universe is not just described by mathematics, but built from it. Imagine then that before the Big Bang, there was no time, no space, no particles, only this mathematical scaffolding, a lattice of possibility waiting, ratios humming silently like strings stretched but unplucked, equations dormant like seeds buried in timeless soil. When the bang erupted, perhaps it was not matter that came first, but the awakening of form, the realization of a geometry that had always been. You see this even now in the smallest places. Snowflakes form with crystalline symmetry, hexagons repeating in infinite variation. Shells spiral with the Fibonacci sequence. Galaxies whirl with golden ratios. Vibrations form standing waves in precise harmonies. Life itself builds upon the mathematics of DNA, sequences coded like language. Everywhere, numbers blossom into being, as though the physical world is nothing but mathematics clothed in atoms. But here lies the paradox. If mathematics is eternal, outside time, then it did not begin. It was. And if mathematics was, then perhaps the universe never needed to be born from nothing. Perhaps the question, what came before the Big Bang, is answered not with silence, but with structure. The bang may have been only the first note of a symphony already composed, the first ripple across a sea of equations that always existed. Still, the mystery refuses to be settled, for to say that mathematics pre-exists is also to say that it exists without minds. But can a number truly be if no consciousness is there to know it? Does P exist in the void, or only when a mind imagines a circle? This is where the question of mathematics touches the question of consciousness, and so you feel the tension. On one hand, mathematics feels eternal, untouched by time. On the other, its very recognition seems bound to awareness. Without consciousness, numbers may be silent. Without minds, ratios may be meaningless. Perhaps mathematics is the bridge between cosmos and consciousness, not existing fully in one, nor entirely in the other, but suspended between. Physicists sometimes speak of the theory of everything, a final equation that explains all forces, all matter, all beginnings. If such an equation exists, then it is mathematics, pure and distilled. But even that invites the question, if the equation is timeless, who or what reads it? A score, after all, is silent until played. So you drift into the thought that maybe the pre-existence of mathematics was not cold, abstract numbers, but a living rhythm, a kind of proto-music. Ratios not merely sleeping in the void, but resonating faintly, like strings vibrating in a silence deeper than silence. Perhaps the Big Bang was the moment the score was struck, the instant the rhythm became audible, the eternal form clothed itself in time. And here, a new mystery emerges, one even more unsettling. If mathematics required no beginning, perhaps neither did consciousness. If forms pre-existed matter, could awareness too? Could mind, like number, dwell outside time, waiting for its chance to notice itself? This thought lingers like a shadow at the edge of the chapter. The Platonists gave us a world of forms, but other traditions have suggested a world of mind, awareness itself as primary, the cosmos as its unfolding. If mathematics is eternal, might consciousness also be? The horizon begins to shift again. The next step is no longer numbers alone, but the possibility that awareness has always been watching. Close your eyes for a moment. Beneath the hum of thought, beneath the stream of memory, what remains? There is a presence, awareness itself, wordless and quiet, watching. Now imagine that this awareness is not only yours, not only bound to your brain, but perhaps something more ancient, something woven into the very fabric of existence. Could consciousness, like mathematics, be older than time? Could it have been there, waiting in the silence before the first star ignited? Science speaks carefully here. Neuroscience tells you that consciousness is born from the physical, from the billions of neurons firing in patterns across the brain. Awareness, in this view, is an emergent property, a flame lit by matter. Without brains, there is no mind. Without complexity, there is no self. In this framing, consciousness is a child of the stars, a phenomenon that only arose after billions of years of evolution, sculpted living beings capable of perception. And yet, this is not the only vision. Philosophers across ages have dared to suggest the opposite, that mind is not late, but first. The Vedic sages of India spoke of Brahman, pure awareness, from which the universe itself unfolded. In certain streams of Buddhism, consciousness is not an effect of matter, but a field in which matter appears, like waves rising in an ocean. The philosopher Berkeley insisted that to be is to be perceived, that reality itself is inseparable from consciousness. Between these visions lies a tension as profound as any in science. On one side, the materialist insists that consciousness is fragile, fleeting, bound to the flesh. On the other, the idealist whispers that matter itself may be the illusion, a shadow within a greater mind. The debate is not new. It is as old as philosophy, as ancient as myth. Physics, too, cannot entirely escape the question. In the quantum world, observation matters. A particle does not resolve into one position until it is measured. Does this mean that consciousness is necessary to complete the act of reality? Or is it simply that interaction, not awareness, collapses the wave? Interpretations abound, but the riddle remains unsettled. Some scientists dismiss the role of consciousness as irrelevant. Others dare to wonder if awareness is not an afterthought, but part of the fundamental fabric. Consider the contrast. If consciousness is emergent, then time precedes awareness. The universe existed for billions of years without a single thought, without a single dream, without a single being to notice. Awareness in this picture is fragile, late to the stage, destined perhaps to vanish when the stars fade. But if consciousness is fundamental, the order reverses. Awareness precedes time, precedes matter, precedes creation itself. The Big Bang becomes not the origin of existence, but the first expression of a witnessing mind already there. What does it mean to imagine awareness outside time? Time, after all, is the measure of change. Awareness, by contrast, may not change. It may be the stillness within which all change appears. Just as a mirror does not alter with the images it reflects, consciousness may remain untouched by the rise and fall of universes. To picture this is to imagine a witness not born, not dying, simply watching forever. And yet, the scientific voice pushes back. Brains produce thoughts. Damage the brain and awareness falters. Remove it and consciousness disappears. Can something so dependent on matter truly pre-exist matter? The skeptic shakes their head. It is comforting to dream of eternal awareness, but dreams do not prove reality. Still you wonder, for there is a mystery in your own experience. You never touch consciousness directly, only its content, thoughts, feelings, sensations. The awareness itself is invisible, intangible, always present, yet impossible to define. Some traditions suggest this invisibility is a clue that consciousness is not a thing among things, but the space in which things arise. And if space and time themselves are not ultimate, Perhaps awareness is not bound by them either. Imagine, then, two possibilities. In the first, consciousness is born late. Stars burn, planets cool, life evolves, neurons fire. And only then, after billions of years, awareness flickers into being. In the second, consciousness is the ground. Universes rise and fall like dreams within it. Awareness does not belong to time. Time belongs to awareness. Which vision feels more like truth? Which vision feels more like wonder? The unsettling thought is this: if time had a beginning, did consciousness begin too? Or has it always waited like a silent observer at the edge of existence, watching from the shadows? If it began, then it is fragile, a brief flame in a cold cosmos. If it has always been, then it is the most enduring thing there is, older than galaxies, older than laws, older even than beginnings. This is the threshold where philosophy and science lean toward one another. For science, the story of consciousness is still incomplete. For philosophy, the question of origins remains open. Between them lies the possibility that both are partly right and partly blind. And so, as you drift in this thought, you realize that consciousness, whether late or eternal, is the one thing you cannot deny. You may doubt the stars, the atoms, even time itself, but you cannot doubt that you are aware. Awareness is the starting point of all experience, and perhaps, just perhaps, it is also the starting point of existence itself. What if the oldest myths knew this all along? What if the stories of creation, of gods, of cosmic eggs, were not merely tales of matter, but symbols of awareness dreaming worlds into being? Myth, after all, is the human attempt to say the unsayable, to remember the unrememberable. And science too, though more cautious, is still a story. One written in equations, in experiments, in measurements. Both reach toward the same mystery. What was before? The horizon of the next chapter is already rising. To go further, you must step into the realm of myth itself, into the tales humanity has always told about what lies before beginning. Perhaps in myth you will find reflections of physics, and in physics reflections of myth. Both may be mirrors, facing each other across eternity, telling stories about the silence before creation. Long before telescopes, before equations, before laboratories measured the cosmos, humanity still looked upward and wondered, what was before the beginning? The night sky was the first book, and in its pages people wrote their earliest answers. They wrote in symbols, in stories, in gods and monsters. Myth was the language of awe, and it did not fear to ask the same questions science now asks, only with a different kind of poetry. Across cultures, myths of origins pulse with strange familiarity. In many, creation begins not with something, but with nothing, or rather, with a fullness that is indistinguishable from emptiness. In the Greek imagination, there was chaos, a yawning gap, a void out of which all else emerged. From this chaos came Gaia, earth, and Eros, desire. Creation, then, was not an ordered plan, but an arising out of silence. The Egyptians told of a dark water, the Nun, endless and still, upon which the first mound rose and the first light appeared. The ancient Vedic texts of India sang of a primordial ocean, neither being nor non-being, out of which the breath of creation stirred. And in Chinese thought, the world began as a cosmic egg, a sphere containing both yin and yang, light and dark, order and chaos, until it cracked and unfolded into heaven and earth. These myths differ in detail, but they rhyme in essence. They reach for images to capture the mystery of beginnings, eggs, oceans, chaos, silence. Each symbol holds a paradox. An egg is enclosed, yet promises birth. An ocean is boundless, yet fecund. Chaos is formless, yet fertile. In myth, nothingness is never barren. It trembles with potential, waiting to become something. In this way, myth foreshadows physics. Modern cosmology speaks of quantum fields fluctuating in the vacuum, of symmetry breaking to give rise to particles, of inflation expanding a tiny seed into a universe. These are not gods or monsters, but they are stories nonetheless. They are humanity's current metaphors for what lies beyond beginnings. Myth and physics both stand at the edge of knowing. Myth says, before creation, there was chaos or water or egg. Physics says, before the first light, there was a quantum vacuum, a singularity, a fluctuation. Both admit that our language strains here, that metaphors must take over when observation fails. Consider the cosmic egg. It is not so far from the singularity of the Big Bang, a compressed totality, holding within it all space, all time, all potential, until it bursts. Consider the ocean of the Nun or the Vedic waters. These resemble the quantum vacuum, a seeming nothingness that nonetheless holds every possibility of being. Chaos, too, is echoed in the quantum foam, a restless uncertainty bubbling at the smallest scales. In each mirror, science and myth reflect one another. Myth gives images, science gives equations. But both are stories humanity tells itself to make sense of the unimaginable. The difference is not absolute. Science may pretend at certainty, but it too shifts its tales as knowledge grows. Myths, though fixed in tradition, are endlessly reinterpreted by the cultures that hold them. Both are alive, both are provisional, both speak in symbols of something they cannot fully name. There is a comfort in this. To see that the human need to narrate beginnings has always been with us is to recognize that science is not an alien pursuit, but part of the same long story of wonder. Where once we spoke of gods cracking an egg, we now speak of quantum fields and inflationary epochs. Where once we sang hymns to the waters of chaos, we now chart equations of dark energy and entropy. Different instruments, same music, the attempt to answer what was before. And yet there is also humility. For myths remind us that no story is final. Each is provisional, a garment draped across the naked mystery. Physics may smile at myths, but in doing so, it risks forgetting its own place as a story. Its equations are rigorous, its predictions precise, but at its frontier, it is still narrative, speculative, poetic, incomplete. Myths admit this openly. Science sometimes resists, but cannot escape. The ancients told stories not only to explain, but to comfort. Creation myths gave shape to chaos, gave order to the unknown. In this sense, science too offers comfort. To say the universe began in a singularity is not only to state a hypothesis, but to soothe the unease of mystery. To say inflation expanded the cosmos in its first instant is to cradle the mind in order, to give an answer where silence might otherwise overwhelm. But comfort is not certainty. Myth knows this. Its beauty lies not in factual truth, but in symbolic resonance. Science, too, must learn this lesson. Its strength lies not in pretending to finality, but in embracing the provisional, in dancing between what is known and what is dreamed. So when you listen to the myths of before, the chaos, the egg, the waters, the silence, you are not only hearing stories of the past, you are hearing reflections of the present, of our current cosmology, of our own attempts to weave meaning from the unimaginable. And when you listen to science, to its talk of quantum vacuums and singularities, you are not only hearing data, you are hearing myth reborn, clothed in equations instead of poems. The stories continue because the questions endure. What was before creation? What lies behind beginnings? The answers change with each age, but the longing remains. And perhaps, as you drift at this point in the journey, you begin to sense that certainty will not arrive. Myth and physics both admit this in their own way. There is beauty in not knowing. There is wonder in dwelling at the edge where stories meet silence, where answers dissolve into questions again. This is where the next reflection begins. The place where certainty and doubt entwine. For science offers tools, but not absolutes. Myth offers symbols but not proofs. Both remind us that to be human is to walk with mystery, to be held between knowledge and unknowing, and so the myths of before fade into the horizon of science's own uncertainty. An uncertainty not of weakness, but of beauty. For in doubt there is awakening. Science is often mistaken for certainty. To the popular imagination, science is a library of facts, each bound in iron, unshakable, permanent. But the truth is softer, more delicate. Science is less a cathedral of certainty than a lantern carried through the night. Its light is real, but the darkness around it always remains. When we ask about before the Big Bang, we are not in the territory of iron facts. We are in the twilight where speculation dances with rigor, where mathematics stretches itself like a net over the unknown. Science can build models, equations, hypotheses, but none of these are guarantees. They are attempts, approximations, gestures toward a mystery that may never fully yield. This is not failure. It is the essence of science itself. To know is not to arrive at the end, but to keep questioning, to sharpen the tools, to refine the lantern. Certainty soothes, but it closes. Doubt awakens, and it keeps us open. Think of the scientific revolutions that have reshaped our picture of reality. Once the Earth was thought the unmoving center. Certainty held us there until doubt cracked the shell and revealed a sun-centered system. Once Newton's laws seemed final, eternal. But then Einstein's relativity pulled back the curtain, revealing that space and time themselves could bend, stretch, and ripple. Once the atom was considered indivisible. Then came quantum mechanics, showing a world more uncertain, more dreamlike than anyone had imagined. In each case, doubt was not the enemy of science, but its breath. Doubt carried us forward. Certainty anchored us until it was time to move again. Science lives in this dance, this rhythm of knowing and unknowing. And yet, when we stand at the question of ultimate origins, the dance becomes more delicate. Here, evidence is faint, buried in the earliest whispers of time. Our detectors cannot peer behind the cosmic horizon of the Big Bang. Our equations falter when compressed into the singularities they describe. We are left with speculation, elegant, brilliant, but speculative nonetheless. Some scientists imagine a universe that cycles endlessly, each Big Bang followed by a big crunch, then rebirth. Others imagine inflationary fields bubbling forth countless universes, a multiverse without beginning. Still others suggest that time itself emerged from a timeless quantum state, a seed outside ordinary causation. Each of these is beautiful. Each is possible. None are certain. The temptation, of course, is to cling to one vision. To declare, this is how it was. Certainty comforts us, as myths once comforted ancient peoples. But science, at its best, resists this temptation. It holds its hypotheses lightly, testing where it can, admitting ignorance where it must. This humility is not weakness. It is strength. To say, I do not know, is not surrender but honesty. It is an opening through which discovery may enter. Certainty closes doors. Doubt keeps them ajar. Even within the scientific community, there is a spectrum of comfort with uncertainty. Some researchers crave definitive answers, the solidity of proof. Others delight in the open-endedness, the recognition that mystery will always remain. Perhaps both are necessary. Too much certainty and science ossifies into dogma. Too much doubt and it dissolves into chaos. The balance must be kept. There is also a human element here. To live with uncertainty is emotionally demanding. The mind longs for closure, for ground to stand upon. When science offers instead a horizon always receding, it can feel like exile. And yet this very exile is the invitation of philosophy to dwell in questions, to savor ambiguity, to treat unknowing not as emptiness but as space for wonder. Consider again the idea of before the Big Bang. Perhaps there was a timeless quantum seed, perhaps a cosmic cycle with no first moment. Perhaps a multiverse birthing endless beginnings. Or perhaps the question itself dissolves and perhaps there was no before because time itself had no past. Each possibility stretches the imagination. Each one is beautiful in its own way, but none is final. If this unsettles us, it is worth remembering. Science has always walked this way. At its edge, science is closer to art, to philosophy, to poetry. It speaks not in declarations, but in metaphors, in possibilities. Equations are its verses, hypotheses are its stories. And like myth, it is provisional, awaiting revision with the next dawn. Certainty is like sleep. It soothes, it comforts, it holds us still. Doubt is like awakening. The light stings, the world feels larger, more uncertain, more alive. To move between these states is the rhythm of thought itself. We need both. And so to meditate on the origins of the cosmos is to meditate on this balance. We must accept the limits of knowledge but not despair in them. Limits are not walls but horizons. Horizons invite us to walk further, to imagine what lies beyond. Science does not erase mystery, it refines it. Each discovery removes one layer of darkness, only to reveal another. Each answer generates new questions. In this sense, doubt is eternal, and perhaps that is not tragedy, but gift. For if the mystery ended, if certainty were absolute, the story would be over. There would be nothing left to ask, nothing left to dream. Philosophers have long warned of the danger of certainty. Descartes doubted everything before arriving at his cogito. Socrates claimed wisdom only in knowing that he did not know. In their echoes, science continues. Doubt is not the enemy of knowledge. It is its companion, its condition, its spark. So, when we look at the horizon of the Big Bang, when we wonder what lies before, we must hold two truths at once: the beauty of the models we build, and the humility of knowing they may never be final. To live in this tension is not failure. It is philosophy at its heart, carried forward by the methods of science. The lantern glows, but the night remains. This is not reason for despair, but for wonder. The light is enough to guide our steps, and the darkness is enough to keep us searching, and here the path curves again. For if science ends not in certainty, but in doubt, then what follows? What rises when the equations falter, when the data runs dry? This is where imagination steps in, where science yields to dream. At the edge of knowledge, another horizon appears, and the horizon of vision, of speculation, of possibilities not yet born. And so we turn gently from certainty and doubt toward the edge where imagination begins. There is a point where science, for all its brilliance, must pause, a point where the chalkboard fills, the equations twist themselves into silence, and the instruments fall still. Beyond that point, imagination waits, quietly, patiently, like a dream at the edge of waking. And here, at this edge, you are invited to step across. Imagination is not a betrayal of science. It is its companion. Every equation once began as an idea unproven, a dream fragile as mist. Newton imagined invisible forces binding apple and moon before he wrote the law of gravity. Einstein pictured himself riding alongside a beam of light before relativity took form. What begins as imagination can, in time, solidify into knowledge. But not every vision needs to harden. Some may remain visions. Delicate, poetic, inspiring not certainty, but wonder. What if time itself could run backward? Imagine a world where cause follows effect in reverse, where memories are futures and hopes are recollections. A glass does not shatter but gathers its fragments, leaping back into wholeness. The sun does not set but rises into the east, retreating into dawn. In such a world, perhaps the end of the universe is the seed of its birth, and what we call before and after are merely two directions in a timeless ocean. What if universes bloomed like flowers, infinite gardens blossoming in the dark soil of nothingness? Picture them opening one by one, petals of space-time unfurling, each with its own laws, its own rhythm. Some bloom only briefly, fading like desert flowers in the heat of a single cosmic day. Others endure for eons, their blossoms spanning galaxies upon galaxies. If our universe is such a flower, then what season are we in? A first spring? A late autumn? Or something beyond seasons altogether, where blooming and fading are illusions of perspective? What if beginnings themselves are illusions? Perhaps there was no first note, but only a melody already in motion. Perhaps the universe is like a river with no spring, its waters appearing to us as origin because we stand too close to the surface. From another vantage point, from a higher horizon, it may flow without source or end, a current eternal, without beginning and without final shore. Imagination gives us these gifts, not to replace truth, but to expand the space in which truth may one day arrive. In the long lullabies of possibility, the mind softens, freed from the demand for certainty. Here, you can wander among visions without needing them to be final. Consider for a moment a universe where consciousness is the architect, where thought itself molds the cosmos, and the laws of physics are not foundations but agreements. In such a reality, your act of imagining is not separate from creation, it is creation. Every dream births a star, every idea constellation. Does this sound fanciful? Perhaps. Yet, it echoes whispers from philosophy and mysticism, traditions that have long asked, if the mind can picture a universe, is it not in some sense participating in its making? Or imagine a cosmos stitched from stories. Each universe a narrative unfolding with its own arc, its own characters, its own theme. Some are tragedies, some comedies, some epics of light and shadow. Ours is but one story among countless others, a book upon a shelf in a library with no walls. To step into imagination is to wander through those shelves, touching the spines of worlds untold, worlds unborn. Science reminds us that such visions are unproven. Philosophy reminds us that they are unresolvable. But imagination does not ask for proof or resolution. It asks only to be entertained, to be allowed to drift through us like a dream. And in this drifting, it offers a form of truth, not empirical, but experiential. For wonder itself is a kind of knowledge as you breathe. Imagine, what if there are universes where breath itself is unknown, where beings live in thought alone? Or in vibrations of light, or in symphonies of mathematics? What if there are realities where dimensions fold in ways we cannot picture, where up and down, near and far, exist only as echoes of a language we cannot speak? What if some universes awaken only for a moment, like fireflies flickering in and out of existence before dissolving back into the void? The power of imagination is not that it claims truth, but that it multiplies possibility. It reminds us that the universe, as vast as it is, may still be but a single expression among countless others. And perhaps, in allowing ourselves to imagine, we train the mind to accept the vastness without fear. At night, when silence gathers and the stars wheel above, humanity has always done this. Around fires, in temples, in observatories, the mind has drifted beyond what is known into what could be. Myth was once imagination's language. Now science shares in the dreaming too. Both are mirrors, different ways of holding the same longing, to understand, to place ourselves within a story larger than ourselves. And so this chapter is less an argument than an invitation to let go of the weight of certainty, to let imagination carry you, to see time folding backward, universes blooming like gardens, beginnings dissolving into timeless currents. Each vision is not a conclusion, but a lullaby, gentle, fleeting, leaving only a shimmer of wonder in its wake. And when these visions dissolve, as all dreams do, you are left not with answers, but with the spaciousness of mystery. A spaciousness that does not close the mind, but opens it wider. For the edge where imagination begins is not an end at all. It is a threshold, a doorway. And beyond the doorway waits a reflection and the realization that in asking about the cosmos, we are also asking about ourselves. because every question about beginnings echoes within us. Where did I come from? Why am I here? What lies before me and what lies after? The edge of imagination is also the mirror of the self, and to step across it is to see the universe not only out there, but within. When we gaze into the origins of time, it is never only the cosmos we are seeking. Always in the background, another question stirs. Quieter, closer, hidden in the pulse of our own being. For as much as we ask what came before the Big Bang, we also ask what came before us. What force drew together the atoms that now breathe as you? What mystery unfolded in the silence before your first cry, before your first thought? The universe in its vastness becomes a mirror. To look outward is to glimpse inward, and to see that every question written in the stars is reflected in the heart. Your life, like the cosmos, has its beginning, a point of emergence, a singularity of self. You do not remember the moment, but it is there, a flicker of consciousness rising from a sea of non-awareness. Much like the universe swelling into expansion, your awareness unfurled, stretching into moments, into years, into a narrative of memory. And just as cosmologists debate what came before the universe, so we wonder what comes before birth.
Was it nothing?
Was it a hidden order awaiting release? Was it silence, fertile and trembling with the possibility of life?
And then, of course, there is the other horizon.
The horizon we rarely wish to face. Just as stars burn out and galaxies drift apart, so too does each life move toward its own quiet dissolution. What lies beyond that boundary? Is it an end, a return, or a transformation into something we cannot yet name? The universe whispers these questions in every sunset, in every leaf that falls, in every breath that pauses. Endings are written into beginnings and beginnings into endings. Here lies the contrast that shapes our wondering. The cosmos is grand,
Near infinite, stretching across billions of light years.
while our own lives are small, fragile, a few decades flickering like sparks, yet the same laws trace through both. Entropy touches not only galaxies, but bodies, not only stars, but minds. And in this recognition comes a strange comfort. You are not separate from the cosmos.
You are woven of it.
The birth of the universe and the birth of your consciousness are chapters in one story, written in the same ink of time. There is beauty in this mirroring. Just as the universe seeks to remember itself through starlight and radiation, so you seek to remember yourself through memory and reflection. Both memory and starlight are fragile, both fade, both stretch thinner with distance. Yet in their fading, they carry meaning. The story of the cosmos and the story of your life are both fragile tapestries, threads of light woven against darkness. But then the deeper question arises. If we ask what came before the Big Bang, we inevitably must ask what came before us. Before your consciousness flickered awake, was there absence? Or was there some hidden continuity, some unbroken current flowing through all things? Philosophy has long pondered this. Some traditions speak of the soul, ancient and enduring, moving through lifetimes as rivers move through valleys. Others see consciousness as an emergent property, arising only when matter reaches a certain complexity, vanishing again when the pattern dissolves. Which is true? Perhaps neither.
Perhaps both.
Perhaps the truth waits beyond the horizon of what we can imagine. And so you find yourself suspended in the same tension the cosmos holds, between certainty and mystery, between the comfort of story and the ache of unknowing. Your own life becomes a reflection of the greater question. What does it mean to begin? What does it mean to end? And what lies, if anything, before and after those thresholds? Think of your breath. Inhale, the beginning. Exhale, the ending. Yet in between is continuity, the flow of life itself. Neither the inhale nor the exhale exists alone. They form a rhythm, a cycle. Perhaps the universe too breathes in this way, expanding and contracting across eras beyond our measure. And perhaps your life is one breath within the larger lungs of creation. If so, then neither birth nor death is the full story, but only movements within a greater pulse. The mirror of the self shows us that the questions we ask of the cosmos are never only distant curiosities.
They are intimate reflections.
When we ask what came before the Big Bang, we are also asking what came before consciousness. When we ask whether the universe will end, we are also asking whether we too end. And when we ask whether time itself has meaning, we are also asking whether our moments carry weight beyond their passing. Some may say these questions have no answers, that to ask them is to wander in circles. But perhaps the wandering is itself the gift. For in walking these circles, you come closer to the heart of being. You begin to see that the very act of questioning ties you to the cosmos, that your curiosity is the echo of the universe reflecting upon itself. Close your eyes for a moment and imagine your life as a small universe, with its own Big Bang, its own galaxies of thought, its own dark matter of unspoken memory. Within you are echoes of beginnings you cannot remember and endings you cannot yet know. Within you is expansion, contraction, emergence, fading. You are not merely within the cosmos. You are a cosmos in miniature, a mirror held up to the infinite. And as you hold this mirror, a gentle realization arises. The universe's question is your own, and your question is the universe's. They are not two mysteries, but one. To ask what came before the Big Bang is to ask what came before you. To ask what lies after the cosmos fades is to ask what lies after your final breath. In this mirroring, wonder deepens and fear softens. For though the answers remain hidden, the kinship between your life and the universe shines clear. And so you drift with this thought lingering at the threshold. Your life, your awareness, your breath, all are woven into the same mystery that swirls galaxies and births stars. And as the mirror reflects both the cosmic and the personal, you are left with a quiet truth. The question of the universe and the question of the self are inseparable. They are one song, one rhythm, one silence before beginnings and after endings. But even this mirror leaves one question unbroken, unanswered, eternal. A question that does not vanish in reflection but grows stronger. For if the self and the cosmos are bound together, then what truly is the question we are asking? What is the mystery that holds them both in its silence? We have walked together through silence and starlight, through beginnings and endings, through the vast corridors of time. From the first spark of the Big Bang to the quiet mirror of the self, the question has followed us like a lantern in the night. What came before? And now, as our journey draws to its close, we must pause. For perhaps the question itself was never meant to be answered, but simply held. Like a stone warmed in the palm, like a secret carried in the heart. The mystery does not shrink beneath our searching. It expands. The closer we look, the more boundless it becomes before the Big Bang, before time, before beginnings. The mind reaches toward it, eager for resolution, but what it touches is only silence. Not an empty silence, not a void without meaning, but a fertile stillness, vast and waiting. A silence that holds both the weight of absence and the promise of possibility. Perhaps this is the true horizon of all inquiry, not to find an ending, but to circle endlessly around the mystery.
To live inside the question.
To allow it to shape the way we see ourselves, the way we move through the brief flicker of our lives. For when you live with the eternal question, the ordinary becomes luminous. The sound of rain on a window, the warmth of a hand in yours, the quiet rhythm of breath, all shimmer with the weight of the unanswerable. The smallest moment becomes infinite when set against the silence before creation. In this way, the question does not withhold from us. It gives perspective or tenderness. It reminds us that to exist at all is a wonder beyond measure. For if there was once nothing or something stranger than nothing, then the fact that there is now something, and that you are here to witness it, is the greatest miracle. And so, the eternal question does not press us towards certainty. It invites us into stillness,
into humility,
into wonder. Imagine, if you will, standing at the edge of an ocean with no shore across from you. The horizon stretches on and on, endlessly receding. You cannot cross it. Yet still you stand and gaze. Still, you listen to the sound of waves, to the rhythm of water against the world. The ocean is not diminished because you cannot hold it in your hands.
It is made greater by its vastness.
So too is the question of what came before the Big Bang. It is an ocean without end, an horizon without limit, and perhaps as you gaze at that ocean, you realize something else. You are part of it. The salt of the sea mirrors the salt of your blood. The rhythm of the waves echoes the rhythm of your breath. The horizon is not only outside you, it is within you. The eternal question does not live beyond your reach. It lives within your being,
woven into your consciousness, inseparable from your own existence. The question,
then, is not only what came before the universe, but how do we live knowing that we do not know? How do we carry the silence of origins within our everyday lives? Perhaps the answer is found not in knowledge, but in presence. To be here now, to dwell with wonder, to let the silence remind you that life, fleeting and fragile, is also infinite in its depth. And so we circle back to where we began, the silence before creation, the stillness before time. The place where language falters, where thought grows soft, where only awe remains. The story has not resolved. It cannot resolve. Instead, it has returned you to the doorway, the threshold. The question remains, glowing like a star that will not burn out. What came before the Big Bang? What comes after us? What holds the universe in its embrace? The eternal question waits, not for an answer, but for your listening, for your stillness, for your willingness to wonder, and in that wonder perhaps you find a kind of peace. For to live in a universe that cannot be fully known is to live in a universe that will always surprise, always astonish, always open itself like a flower to those who are willing to look. The not knowing is not a lack, it is a gift. It is the doorway through which awe enters. And so, as our journey closes, we leave the question not behind us, but before us, always before us. A horizon that retreats as we walk toward it. A silence that deepens the more we listen. Let this silence be your companion. Let it cradle you as you drift into rest. Let it remind you that you are part of a mystery larger than words, larger than time, larger than the reach of stars. The question will remain. But tonight, you need not answer it. You need only rest within it. Close your eyes now.
Feel the weight of your breath.
Feel the gentle rhythm of your body, the warmth of existence itself. Around you, the universe hums in quiet mystery. Within you, the same mystery hums back. Two reflections, one silence, and as the question folds around you like night, allow yourself to drift. Drift into stillness. Drift into silence. Drift into the eternal mystery from which all things arise and into which all things return. The eternal question is not an ending. It is an invitation, an open door,
a horizon of wonder.
It is the silence before beginnings and the silence after endings. It is infinite. It is timeless. It is here. Rest now in that silence.
Rest in that mystery.
Rest in the question that has no answer and needs none. Good night.